Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard and this is Lap of the World, your home for road trips and racetracks. Now, admittedly today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the former because we can't quite yet get back out into the world to do the latter. I was actually inspired to make this video while I was watching a video on someone else's channel. I was watching a piece that Tyson Hughey, who I mentioned in my last video, did on his 500,000-mile Acura Legend, in which he drops the tidbit that he has driven it through 37 different states, I think was the number. I was also aware previously of another gentleman in the NSX community, we'll call him Fred. He's also a journalist, you may have read this in a magazine, but he had driven his NSX, I think he and his wife had driven his NSX to all of the cardinal extremes of the lower 48 states, maybe driven it through all 50 states, I don't remember the detail there, and I didn't bother to look it up before I came out here to the garage, so Google is your friend. But that got me thinking. I was like, I don't think that our tally in our NSX is actually that shabby. I don't think we're on that level, but I was curious enough to dig into it, and I figured I would make a video out of it. Now, it would be pretty boring at this point if I just said, yeah, so in comparison, we've driven through blank number of states. So instead, I decided to take a more I thought I would take a more narrative approach to it as a way to both, yes, tally up all the states that we've driven through in the NSX, but also to take the opportunity to kind of retell the journey so far of the channel and activities prior in a little bit of a different manner. And then at the end, of course, we will sort of have a little bit of interesting tally and trivia and stuff like that. So I hope it's something you enjoy, but without any further ado, my journey with this NSX began in 2008, somewhat famously after a one-way plane ticket and $16,000 changing hands in White Plains, New York. After completing that deal, the first real car purchase of my adult life, I then limped my trophy home with its electrical systems failing as I went. Starting with the Empire State, I drove my poor neglected Acura through New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia, before finally arriving home in Tennessee to start a still ongoing restoration. Indeed, it wasn't until 2010 that the NSX would again cross state lines. By then I had spent 2 years alternately daily driving it, autocrossing it, and fixing the worst of the ailments brought on by previous neglect. When I did take the NSX back out of the world, no surprise, it was to the car's first track event. We passed through Georgia and into Alabama on the way to Talladega Grand Prix Raceway for a fun day out with some friends. By 2012, I had gotten the car mostly sorted out. A trip to South Carolina validated my progress as I podiumed a NASA time trial event at CMP. I logged the other Carolina in 2013 with a trip to Raleigh for my first NS Expo. I had debated the expense of the event at the time, but I think it's safe to say that making that trip is among the decisions I definitely do not regret. 2013 is also when Liz joined the party. The first trip we took together, you guessed it, a track day at Barber Motorsports Park in the NSX, along with my best friend and his now wife as well. A move to Colorado in 2014 took us through Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, and into northern Colorado, bringing the NSX to its new home just east of the Rockies. Liz and I then embarked on our first NS Expo together in 2015, a trip that took the three of us west out of Colorado, across a corner of Utah, through Nevada, and into California on our way to Palm Springs for an event that cemented NS Expo as an annual fixture on our calendar, as you will note going forward. 2016 saw us move back to Tennessee, which proved fortuitous as NS Expo that year landed in Orlando, Florida, which allowed us to check that state off our list. NS Expo 2017 then took us up north, allowing us to add Indiana and Wisconsin to the tally. The unfortunate results of NS Expo 2017, a failed snap ring in the transmission, put the NSX on a trailer for the first time in my ownership and up to Ohio for repair. We get to count that state though, because it did drive triumphantly out of Ohio after Source One worked their magic. 2018 proved a big year for state accrual as NS Expo moved back to the West Coast and San Francisco. This trip took us through Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona on the way out, and we added Wyoming on the way home. 2019 chalked up the District of Columbia, if you count it separately, as well as West Virginia, both again part of NS Expo festivities. Thus far in 2020, we've only revisited states so far, though that might change if things return to some semblance of normalcy by late summer. So there you have it. 29 states plus the District of Columbia is the current tally for states that we've driven our NSX through so far. Personally, I've only been to 3 other states, apart from those that we've driven the car through. Liz, on the other hand, has been to all 50 states, so the car and I have some catching up to do for sure. I figure we'll get there eventually, although Alaska and Hawaii could be interesting. Before I go, though, I did want to give a quick shout out. You'll note today that I'm not rocking my usual LOTW.TV Lap of the World branded shirt. That is because I'm currently repping the Hard Parking podcast, put on by my friend Jay Fenning. It is a great listen. If you are looking for other things to watch or listen to occupy your time, or maybe to use in the background during your work day, I can highly recommend it. Hard Parking podcast, again, available pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. It's usually a mix. It's a fun mix, I think, of automotive and non-automotive topics that he covers, all with a great sense of humor, in my opinion. Liz and I were actually guests of his a couple of weeks ago, and it was a ton of fun recording with him, virtually, of course. His most recent guest was very interesting to me anyway, Billy Johnson, the professional racing driver and esteemed NSX alumni, very active in the community. He still has his 92 NSX, and the damper settings and alignment on this car I think I got from him on the forum back in the day. But it was cool to hear him talk about both some kind of current topics like the sim racing, the rise of sim racing, where a lot of the professional drivers, not that sim racing hasn't been big, but you have a lot of professional drivers from real life racing series now doing sim racing just to keep the publicity going. He also covered some of his work as a development driver on the Ford GT supercar, as well as just some other odds and ends. They were kind of fun. It was a very fun listen. I enjoyed it thoroughly. But anyway, highly recommend it. I'll leave a link in the description again. But in the meantime, appreciate you all watching. I hope that was a fun video. If it was, click like below. Also consider subscribing, because both of those things help me out and they're free to you. Leave a comment if you have any commentary on this video or things that you would like to see me cover in future videos. Feel free to leave it below. But in the meantime, though, and until next time, I'm Richard. This is Lap of the World, and I will see you guys in the next video, if not at the track.